I'm Jim Check. With me, Ian Burns, managing editor out there in the nation's capital. I'm in Kelowna, British Columbia. A cloudy day. It almost looks like the sun hasn't come up. It's so cloudy that it's dark out still. And it's October 17th, Friday, and it's a day before the big day, the day before. You know what the big day is? Tomorrow's my birthday. Come on.
All right.
I thought the whole world knew that.
Saturday.
There you go. In case you want to send in gifts or you want an added gift, there. Tomorrow's my birthday. Carney said he would arrest Netanyahu. Carney reveals the new climate grift. We've been talking about it for a while. And he also admits that Trump was in his camp. And is Canada cooking the books? Will Canada get bail reform? The attack dogs come out on Poilievre. We said that would happen yesterday. CBC sues to keep secrecy. Canada has what the world wants. It's wind. Is Canada a nation? That question should be asked over and over. Musk steps up, and things are heating up in Venezuela. All that and a lot more on the Really Big Show. We do have a lot to go on here, but Mark Carney did a long-form interview of this new podcast they got going on Bloomberg here. And we're going to play one clip. We'll talk about the clip, but I think there's 3 clips we want to play out of this long-form interview. And you've reached out and asked for an interview. And the letter you wrote was pretty interesting, for sure. You called him to task, but let's play the first clip there.
On this, right? President Trump is calling climate change a hoax. Are you in danger of squandering your reputation as a global climate champion because some of your actions are against that ultimate goal?
I'd a few things in what you said. First, it's not about my role as Prime Minister is not about my reputation. My role as Prime Minister is about what's in the best interest of Canada. Canadians care about the world. They care about climate action. They care about their fellow citizens. They care about all of those things. Those values of sustainability and solidarity, fairness are fundamental to Canadians. What we need to do is to be as effective as possible in terms of addressing climate change while growing our economy.
So what are you going to do about emissions from the oil and gas sector?
Well,
there is a cap that's supposed to come in. Is it true that you're considering dropping it?
What we're focused on, look, you can say there's a cap, but saying a cap doesn't make it happen. What makes the emissions go down in the oil and gas sector, as long as Canada and America are using oil and gas, and we are, our economies are wired for that, as is the rest of the world. What makes those emissions go down will be carbon capture and storage, particularly in other efficiencies.
So you are dropping it then? That's what it sounds like.
What we're dropping emissions from the oil and gas sector.
Dropping the cap.
Dropping emissions, Michelle, from the oil and gas sector. This is the point. This is about results. The climate cares about results. It doesn't care about a policy that is... An outcome is not a policy. A desired outcome is not a policy.
So I'm getting the strong signals that that particular policy to have a cap on emissions from the oil and gas sector is not going to happen.
An outcome is not a policy. What makes a difference to the climate is whether or not emissions come down. What's required for the Canadian oil sands, in this case, what we're talking about, is carbon capture and storage. We signaled our first major nation-building project is something called the Pathways, which will get those emissions down. Second thing related to this, and this is crucial from a climate perspective, is ending methane, what's so-called fugitive methane flaring, which is, depending on your horizon, and the horizon that we're all in the next few decades in terms of climate warming, is up to 70 times bigger. 70 times bigger.
On this clip here. Yeah, we've talked about this, and the grift that's coming is the carbon capture. We talked about that. Tim Hodgson celebrated that company that came from the United States called Carbon Capture USA, and we showed you the monstrosity of HVAC fans they have there that suck the air in and then capture the carbon in these fans, and then they're going to put it into trucks, truck it to a site, inject it into deep wells, and then sell the carbon credits to the oil and gas producers. So basically, they came to Canada because Trump cut off all the tax credits. They're coming to Canada for a 75% tax credit. So they're getting Canadian funds, taxpayer dollars, to do this big monstrosity that takes energy to run these fans. And then we're going to give them the ability to tax our energy. We're going to give them the ability to tax our energy. And then, you know who does a better job than all that? A tree. A tree. Just a tree.
You
Just a tree. And anything with photosynthesis. So this is the grift that's coming, and you're going to hear more about this carbon capture more and more and more. This is what they're going to sell. This is the new climate grift. It's all about carbon capture. It's almost like an NFT. They're going to inject it into the ground, and then they're going to sell those credits for what's in the ground. How do they know it stays in the ground, and how do you know what's been sold that's in the ground? Do you know what I mean? Like,
how do you know it's even CO2? It might be something else. It might be farts, for all we know.
And the ground is full of fissures and cracks and an earthquake. Like, what makes it stay in the ground? Unbelievable.
Yeah. But I mean, when I was watching this interview, I was kind of thinking, this woman here is called Michelle Hussein, used to work for the BBC. You know, most people know her in Britain, not particularly, in my humble opinion, not particularly good or valuable as a interviewer. But credit to her. Yeah. She managed to, just in that tiny clip that we've seen, and like I said, she's really not a superstar in the British media scene. Never was. I mean, she's gone off and got this sinecure at Bloomberg and retired from the BBC apparently. But there she is. She sits down with Mark Carney, because obviously Mark Carney sits down for a long form interview with another person from England, which it seems to be. That seems to be his primary audience now. But okay, after having just done The Economist. But yeah, she sits down with him and she gets him to concede, just with some little sort of passive questioning and a little bit of pressure, gets him to concede basically that he is going to drop the oil and gas emissions. That's good. That looks like that's going to happen, because he really didn't defend that at all. And she kept doing it again and again and again and again. And he didn't defend it. Usually in politics, that means that's gone. And also got him to say, basically to declare his policy on the environment. We didn't even know this, but she's got it. This English person, thousands of miles away, has got it out of our prime minister that he's about, what he wants to do is just, it doesn't matter how it's done. It doesn't matter. He's not rigid in that way. He doesn't want to have the Trudeau style mandates and things like that and caps. He would rather just use carbon capture. Basically, that's 100% of his idea, to bring overall emissions down any way that he can make it look like that's true on paper.
That's the climate grift. That's it. That's the grift right there. They're going to make money. They have figured out another vehicle to tax energy. That's it. It is a
it's like
vehicle
a tithe.
To tax.
It's like a tithe, like in the church. Yeah. In the days of the church, I'm talking in the Middle Ages in Europe. If you wanted to do almost anything, you had to give a certain amount of money, endow a certain amount of money to the church, or just have your income tithed. And it's almost like that. It's like, yeah, sure. You can have an oil and gas industry, but there will be a tithe. We are going to take a cut.
And then just for everybody, just go to Brookfield, go to their website, and just take a look around for carbon capture. And lo and behold, they're a leader in carbon capture. How fortuitous for Brookfield. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
It's one of those weird coincidences, isn't it?
But she's a journalist that's actually a journalist, whereas in Canada they would have been just like pumping his tires. And like here's somebody that presses and presses and presses, and gets answers that, I mean, CBC and CTV, I mean, absolutely. And that's why he doesn't want to do interviews. But let's play the second clip here.
Really well known for these words, this phrase, the tragedy of the horizon. Yep. It's all about how you need to think long term rather than in terms of a short term horizon. And yet in office, you scrapped the consumer carbon tax. You paused the mandate that was pushing car makers to sell more and more electric vehicles. And there are now reports that you are about to drop the cap on emissions from the oil and gas sector. What happened to you?
I'm the same me. I'm focused on the same issues. And the question is, how do you make progress towards those issues? And particularly, how do you make progress in a way that is most effective? How do you make progress most effectively? And so I'll break those issues down. The consumer carbon tax was at best going to be responsible for high single-digit proportion of emissions reductions over the course of the next 25 years. So it was something, but it was far from the most important measure that was in place. it was extremely politically divisive, and it would have contributed to a government in place that would have canceled all climate policies in effect. First point. That's the design of that that aspect of the carbon tax relative to.
Yeah, it wasn't perfect. I get
it wasn't
that.
perfect, but so the question is, how do you use scarce government capital, government dollars, tax?
He can. Basically, what he's saying there is he scrapped it because they would have lost the election.
Yeah, and he also, I mean, he's so much more candid, isn't he? It's quite amazing. There was so much information squashed into that tiny little Carneyism, like Carney statement, where he said, "I'm still the same me," because she had values. I don't know if people have noticed or if the camera angle is right, but she's got values next to her, and she keeps looking in it during this interview. And she quoted from values, or she quoted from some speech he made at the UN or something, and then said, "What happened to you?" And he says, "I'm still the same me." So that's quite important, isn't it? Because a lot of people have been wondering, like, has he changed his tune? Has he changed his views since values? But no, he is still values. He's still fully attached to that. And then he also said, well, another thing let's remark upon, he referred to it as the carbon tax rather than the carbon price or carbon levy, as a lot of his fellow liberals like to say, like to pretend it was never a tax. But he's not messing around with that anymore. Calls it a tax. And then he says, again, something that we all kind of knew, and we all talked about this, but back when it used to be controversial to say it, it wasn't important, it wasn't effective, it didn't do anything. It was a waste of time. And it was something that Pierre Poilievre was using to, storm his way into Ottawa, and he was going to win because of that. So he's letting us in. He's really given us this a clear glimpse of what goes on behind the scenes. And we knew this. I mean, everybody knew this. We're hardly wizards for knowing this. But we knew that this was just a play, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was just a game. And he thought, all right, drop this. That sucks the energy out of Poilievre. It's pretty crap anyway. Then we'll do loads of carbon capture stuff. It's like he's giving you an insight into who he is. And it's not something that we've had the opportunity to get. You certainly don't get this when he stood around in like Fredericton or something, or Etobicoke, and making an announcement, and he gets asked one question shouted at him by a Canadian reporter. Yeah. Like this is like real insight into how he thinks. We didn't get this from CBC either.
We didn't get this from the CBC either. They just.
I mean, I almost feel like they don't even know to ask those questions.
Come on, I think they're a bit at sea. Let's play this last clip here, and this one is actually going to cause some grief for Canada.
The Israeli government. Justin Trudeau said that Canada would honor the International Criminal Court arrest warrants, i.e. Benjamin Netanyahu would be arrested if he came to Canada. Does that stand under your leadership?
Yes.
You'd be prepared to do that?
Yes.
Are we also in a climate crisis?
We are in a climate crisis,
okay. That's the last time we spoke was at the Glasgow Climate Conference. Grab your headphones, because I want to play you something that you said around that time when you were the UN Special Envoy for Climate Action.
I mean, that is going to cause some reaction from Trump and Rubio, obviously. And
and people in Canada too. Lots of people in Canada will look at that and say, what? And I don't just mean random people. I mean, like certain organizations, maybe some MPs in his own caucus might be a little bit concerned about that.
It's a contradiction, though, too, right? Because he just rushed off to Egypt last minute. He begged to go there to that signing there for this peace deal, and then it's like here he is talking about peace, right? Like, I want to be part of this peace process, which involves Netanyahu, obviously, right? And then the next minute he's going to arrest him. How do they sit in the room if you have to broker peace between Netanyahu and the Palestinians, and you want to be part of this brokerage of peace? How are you threatening? Did he say he was going to arrest the Hamas? Did he? I don't know. Like what? And how does Canada?
Well, he's never going to never ask that sort of question, is he? But and also Hamas, for God's sake, they're like terrorists. They're international terrorists. They can't fly anywhere. They're trapped where they are. The only place they could fly to maybe is Iran or something like that, like somewhere that they have friends. They're not coming to Canada. But Israel is a liberal democracy.
Are you sure about that?
And its leader might theoretically come to Canada. yeah, I take your point. They do have a visa scheme in place that might be. Let's pray to the Lord that that isn't abused by anybody with links to Hamas. But yeah,
it's these are the direct contradictions. Like in one, he's over there with Trump palling around because like it blows me away. I just don't get it, right? Like, you know, he says that I think sometimes he just talks to an audience that he thinks, and I think when he's talking to her, he thinks he's talking to a different audience, and he can be more open because he doesn't think, you know, most Canadians will watch it or something. Or, you know, the people,
it's
maybe
funny,
they don't.
yeah.
The people on CBC likely
right.
will only eat from the CBC cereal bowl.
Well, something that I definitely notice about Canadian media is they're very reluctant to attribute anything else to another broadcaster, another outlet. So that in England and other countries, including the US, if like let's just talk about the US. If Trump does an interview with like ABC, all the rest of them, CBS, Fox,
they'll
all get their hands on it. They all want it.
They just run
and
it.
They don't mind. They don't care that there's a little watermark that says ABC News.
Yeah.
They're not bothered about that. That's fine. No. They want the story. But in Canada, I find it's not quite the same. There's a massive reluctance to even acknowledge that other media outlets exist.
Go to CBC if you can right now, Nick, and above the fold. That this should be a top story. There's a couple of revelations in here that, you know what I mean? Like he would arrest Netanyahu. That should be, I would think that would be the top story for CBC right now. I'm on their CBC website, and it's lead found in protein powders. Lead found in protein powders.
This is a U.S. report, by the way. This is from America.
You got to go to the CBC News, cbc.ca/news. Anyway, lead found in the toxic metal, and about 3 stories on this lead in that. And then Trump's next peace priority is Ukraine, Russia.
Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer Lopez, yeah. And nothing about this, right? Absolutely zero. Because this would look bad, right? That's good. Okay.
I think they're going to have, this is too big to just leave. They're going to have to do something on this eventually. But like CTV, you'd think, okay, CTV is like a commercial enterprise. You know, are they on it? No. This is CTV's front page. New Canadian research suggests skinny fat body type linked to artery damage. Okay, lads. Well, he's doing a press conference now. Mark Carney is. Somebody's going to ask him that, and then that's when they'll report on it. They'll say, oh, Mark Carney said today in Canada, but really it all stems from this interview. Why are we playing silly buggers? He's said it to Bloomberg. It's okay. It's fine. Other media outlets exist.
And this one here is really important. We've talked about it, cooking the books. And because they're going to try and sell this, and they went to former PBOs, and now they've got an IMF director to argue there's no fiscal crisis in Canada. Why don't they go to CPA Canada? Why don't they go there? Why don't they go to the accounting standards? Why don't they go there and ask them? No, they got to go and find somebody in the IMF, some you know, like whatever, because they really need. They got the IMF managing director, Kristina Georgieva, to say that, oh no, it's all good. And then the former PBO, this is ridiculous. Ask CPA Canada. I'm sure you know the number, right?
The RBC, even, you know, biggest bank in Canada. They might have some knowledge on this.
You know, Jason, the PBO guy, he's a CPA. You could even ask him for the number for CPA Canada.
But this campaign to discredit Jason Jacks, kind of, there's a lot of skullduggery going on here, isn't it? It's very interesting.
It calls into question accounting standards in Canada, because you're going out to the world and say, well, Canada's accounting standards are just, you know, like they don't matter. We're going to get permission from the IMF instead. And here's Francois Philippe Champagne saying, whatever her name is, Kristina is of the IMF validates Canada's
Kristina Georgieva.
There you go. Validates Canada's new capital budgeting approach and cycle. So throw Canadian accounting standards out the window, because this lady just validated. We're taking steps to promote capital formation and growth, reduce operating costs, and drive productivity and resilience in the Canadian. But it's a fool's errand anyway, because you know what? The people investing in Canada, they're not going to look at her and say, oh yeah, that's all good. Let's rubber stamp this. No, they're going to look at the accounting standards and the comparisons that have been made over the time.
And the IMF, we should say, the IMF is not infallible. they've made plenty of mistakes, and they also have an agenda. They also have a perspective on macroeconomics that
Ask
is
people.
ultimately biased. It's tendentious in its own way. And
Ask
also, you have to
people.
remember, if you go bankrupt, who bails you out? It's the IMF.
But ask people that have had to dip into the IMF what happens to the populations of those countries. It's
Yeah,
austerity.
exactly. That's what I mean. If you go to them with a begging bowl, they take control of your economy.
Yeah, and it's austerity for the population, and again, greatness for the elites, right? Because they, like it's just almost like they seem to scrape off the top, but the rest of the population pays the price. The IMF is not a place you want to look to for. Anyway, it's
and also
absolutely.
You have to look, I would really strongly advise people. I mean, you could probably you could go to the IMF's website, you could go to the World Bank's website, whatever it is. Just type in something like I don't know, debt to GDP ratio by G7, or just by countries in the world. Look where Canada is. All these conversations you're hearing about, oh, Canada's fiscal position is actually much stronger. It's not. It isn't.
No.
Debt is more than 100% of GDP. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. But because Japan is worse, and because America is worse, some other countries are worse, it's like, oh no, you've got room. It's only 110% debt to GDP. Like, what?
So they're
it's
not
terrible.
fooling.
Canada's fiscal position is terrible. Just because Japan's is worse or something like that doesn't mean that therefore you should, open up the till and spend all the money that you can get a hold of.
They're not fooling the people that are investing the billions of dollars. They're not fooling them. They're not fooling any accountant. So who are they trying to fool? The voter. So they're giving this fodder to the CBC and hoping that they'll trot it out there and just like, this is the new, and ammunition for talking points, because I've seen a bunch of these Liberal MPs now trot this out and say this new way is the better way. That's not how accounting works.
They're just hoping that people don't know. They're just hoping that people have zero knowledge of economics, and their hope is well-founded, I think. Most people don't know anything about economics.
It's about time.
Least of all, this kind of economics, this kind of based on debt and things like that. Very few people are bothered about this kind of thing. So they're just wanting an argument from authority. They're just saying, look, the glorious IMF says it's okay.
Yeah, they went and found some lady in the back corner there that's willing to compromise herself to say some stuff, just like this PBO here that came out and said, oh, no, it's he's got to walk back those comments. Anyway, I'm a CPA as well, but
and these are all people, by the way, that Mark Carney you would expect, given the circles that Mark Carney has been in all his life, really. You'd expect him to know these people. He might even have their phone numbers, and that raises questions, doesn't it? It's kind of, has there been any requests put in maybe to the IMF, like, oh yeah, we got this guy, he said this. I mean, obviously that's verging on something sinister and conspiratorial, but that's how it works. And at the high level, a text here and there asking for a favor, it does happen. It's not beyond the realms of possibility.
We're going to play a clip here because Carney was also talking about jail, not bail, but also EVs. We got a clip here from this press conference. He doesn't like slogans, but every time he stands at the podium, he's got a slogan. So the anti-slogan guy.
Stations that are going on. It's not that simple, and nor is the relationship in the auto sector that simple as just open a door here with China with no impact on the relationship with the United States and the impact on activity here in Canada.
Next question.
Hi, Monique Malima, Bloomberg News. Bank of Montreal CEO Darryl White said yesterday that Canada's tax system is absolutely not competitive. Do you agree with this, and why or why not?
I disagree with it, and it'll be clear in the budget the competitiveness of the Canadian tax system, including relative to the United States for investment. This is a budget that is going to support generational investment in Canada, scale of investment we haven't seen for decades, and that will include a highly competitive corporate tax system. There is a difference in terms of the choices that Canadians have made consistently over time in terms of the personal tax system and the balance of the social model in Canada, the support we give to each other, and broad brush that
good,
aspect
Nick,
of our
that.
tax system will.
Can you look for 3414 actually, Nick? But we can talk about this. Like, well, it remains to be seen because we're not competitive, but according to Mark Carney, we are. But we'll see what's revealed in this budget. But I'm not holding my breath because I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, everything is waiting on that budget, isn't it? And obviously they know that, and that's why they wanted to delay it several months, because it's really it's going to decide the future of this government for sure.
Okay, play that clip.
Hi, Alison Hurst, CTV News. China's ambassador to Canada has said that if you lift the EV tariffs, China will lift its canola oil tariffs. Will you, or canola tariffs? Will you, yes or no? And China is clearly exploiting the canola sector's reliance on its export market. Wouldn't it be naive to expand the trade relationship with that country, given that?
Well, there's a lot packed into that question, but let me take the last bit and build out from it, which is that we get a lesson from the trade actions of the United States over the last this year. Trade actions such as the canola tariffs you just referenced, the danger of overdependence on single trade partners. First point. The second is that in those contexts, we have to look for alignment of incentives and interests as much as possible. That's where it's possible and responsible.
That's good. Because there's no answer.
Well, he's asked. If you keep listening, he's asked again. She's frustrated, and she says, "But what about the EV mandate?" And then he kind of gets a little bit chirpy,
cheeky,
and he's like, "I gave you a good answer."
Yeah, I know. Like that's what I mean. He goes on, and this is his answer, which is typical of his answer when he's talking to Canadian reporters, is just mumbo jumbo, which is not a clear answer. Then they ask him again, and he's like, "I gave you an answer," and just like, I don't know which part of that is the answer. Which part of that was the answer? Did you get an answer?
You never do. If he doesn't feel like it, you get that, don't you? But what I would advise people to do, just as a matter of interest, contrast that with his conversation with Michelle Hussein from Bloomberg in London.
Well, I think maybe he thinks they're more intelligent and he has to answer them. Maybe that's it, because he thinks they're of a higher caliber, whereas he can just talk nonsense to Canadian reporters, and he gets away with it. So obviously it works.
Possibly, but maybe also he feels Bloomberg. Previous one was The Economist. Maybe he thinks like, look, I'm talking to foreign capital here. I'm talking to foreign investors. I'm talking to people that know their onions. They're not going to tolerate a word salad that I would give to somebody from Globe and Mail or whatever it is, CBC, somebody that isn't important as far as Mark Carney's concerned.
They also, in this we're not going to play more clips, but he says there's a bail reform bill coming to the House of Commons, and there was a lot of work in this committee hearing on this stuff too. There's, the police, that Brian Sauvé, president of the National Police Federation that represents 20,000 RCMP, told Commons that on September 25th that frontline Mounties are repeatedly arresting the same individuals. We've covered this a million times, often for crimes committed while on bail. This is dangerous, demoralizing, and drains police resources that could be better spent on crime. And that's from the police. And then we played that clip yesterday from Dr. Nicole Myers. She's even saying first-degree murder, like you really have to look at each one and see whether or not they should be held without bail. So it remains to be seen if we get anything remarkable. Else. But he did announce that they're hiring 1,000 new RCMP, but appeared to shelve that 2021 Liberal promise to create a $200 million Canadian financial crimes agency. And we're going to have a lot more in talking about some of the crime agencies that are operating here in Canada, and including, on both our coastlines.
Should say as well, since you mentioned the 1,000 RCMP officers, we got a press release. I said he's doing a press conference now. What he's doing is announcing this press release, which is the intention to hire 1,000 more border officers. So he likes the number 1,000. There
you go. And we knew that this was coming. We knew this was coming when Pierre Poilievre in that podcast, he was doing a podcast there, and he said that Trudeau and the RCMP were basically complicit in some of the scandals there, and then somebody needed to be held accountable. And now they're starting to come out after him, actually, and says the Liberals brand Poilievre deeply irresponsible for alleging RCMP covered up the Trudeau crimes. And the RCMP has answered that as well, saying that there was no crimes.
That was that press conference that we just had a clip from.
Yeah.
In the Etobicoke, I think it was. And the police, what was he, chief superintendent, something like that? RCMP commissioner? No, it was the commissioner. Okay. So he didn't expect at all to be asked a question, but he just popped forward and said, yeah, he was like, I don't take orders from any politicians. We investigated, I think he was talking about Lavalin, SNC Lavalin. We investigated that. No trouble there, guys. And then Poilievre says, should come and meet us. Then he'll realize that we aren't despicable. Quite.
And then here's the Globe and Mail.
It's not what you usually get from a cop, anyway, put it that way, when they're talking about a politician.
Poilievre accuses, and this is the Globe and Mail, Poilievre accuses RCMP of covering up Trudeau area scandals. Why don't we get the documents? Like, how many scandals did the NDP and the Liberal not allow them to go to committee hearing? How many of them are still sitting there? The Green scandal is still there. The documents that allege that Stephen Guilbeault was profiting off this Green scheme. Where are those documents? I don't know where they are.
Many such cases, though. Just read Blacklock's any day of the week, and you'll see they highlight, often their stories are basically just highlighting a lack of transparency in certain areas.
Well, here you go, Blacklock. So there's a story. There's a little more from Amira here. She lobbied government managers to install Muslim prayer rooms in federal buildings. Though only 2% of the employees self-identify as Muslims. Is there any Christian prayer rooms or any other types of prayer rooms? But Islamophobia in the workplace looks like many things that she wrote in her note in 2024 video conference can manifest when Muslim employees face challenges in accessing reasonable accommodations for religious practices such as prayer breaks, fasting during Ramadan, or dress code requirements. And, the identity politics and the virtue signaling of the Liberals, it was just catering to special interest groups more and more and more all the time.
But this is, you're not really supposed to mix religion and government. This is not as simple an argument as I think she thinks she's making, It's not. It can't all just be described as Islamophobia. Like, we do have a secular system of government where religion is supposed to be like
separation of church and state. Separation of church and state. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we don't quite have that in the British system, but basically we do. Yeah. In effect, we do.
And then one more from Holly Jones at Blacklocks and CBC, the government-funded media. I would say government trough-filled media. They filled the trough for the CBC. The CBC in a federal court filing says disclosing the number of paid subscribers to its $72 a year GEM streaming video services is too commercially sensitive. How come Netflix can share their information? How's that? Netflix shares theirs.
Well, they didn't though, did they, for a long time? They were reluctant once. But then when they got successful enough, they said, all right, you can see. But I guess CBC is still waiting for that success.
Who watches GEM? I didn't even know it existed. GEM records are
$72 a year.
GEM records are commercially sensitive. That's what the CBC lawyers wrote. Their disclosure could reasonably be expected to prejudice the competitive position.
But this is the public v private, isn't it? This is what it's like. The reason that Netflix and those other companies have revealed their subscriber numbers is because they have shareholders, and it's about operating as a commercial enterprise. CBC doesn't have shareholders.
I would argue they do have shareholders. Money. The shareholders are the Canadian taxpayer, and they don't seem to want to answer to the Canadian taxpayer. That's the shareholder for the CBC. They only want to answer to the Liberal Party.
Yeah, that's the real shareholder base. They are the big boys, aren't they? The Liberal caucus. It's not really about the Canadian people, I don't think.
Because Bell Media announces its Crave, which is owned by Bell, actually has 3.8 million subscribers. And yet GEM can't share it. In Ontario, I'll tell you that 0.35% of the streaming market participated in the CBC GEM. 0.35%. That's how many people. Like, I mean, if you're watching right now, who's paying for GEM? Who's paying for GEM? I didn't even know it existed.
Anybody that's watching, yeah, say in the comments. But this is the kind of thing that CBC News, they would get very self-righteous, wouldn't they, about this? They'd say, we sent in multiple requests to asking about subscriber numbers. They did not reply. But it's like all of a sudden now that's them. It's like, no, we can do what we want, man.
And also, they use GEM as to get more dollars so they can do more programming. GEM, which is cultural programming, as they call it. The CBC does not represent Canadians. How many people actually watch the CBC, and do they answer to Canadians? No, they answer to the Liberal Party. Look at their slant on everything. Again, go to their website right now. Are they covering off the top stories? No.
Catherine Tate, did you see that bit? Catherine Tate says millions of Canadians. Oh, sorry. CBC GEM now reaches millions of Canadians. Let's be clear. Now, how could that have been fiddled with? If you look above where she refers to YouTube, there's one example. So they put some content on YouTube, count all those numbers. But then there's also something that people do in this business of ratings, which is a view isn't a view per se. A view might be a household. So that might be 5 views. So we can just times it by 5.
Well, Lightning Rod loves the CBC. Good for Lightning Rod.
I didn't see that coming. Really didn't see that one coming.
We have a reach of, I think our reach is 7.5 billion. Well, I maybe take some of China, maybe cut off YouTube, but we have that reach if somebody wants to turn it on. But that's the reach we have. But thank God Lightning Rod is listening in. But the vast majority of Canadians aren't being represented by CBC. Nor are they watching CBC. But they're taking $1.55 billion of your tax dollars, and then they don't even want to tell you what's going on there. This a couple times they wanted secrecy. There's a couple times that they don't want to release their information. And when Mark Carney promised them $150 million during the election, when they won the election, they gave their executive team a big, fat raise. Here's another one from Hollywood on the Blacklocks. Canada under siege. The Premier of Prince Edward Island yesterday called into the RCMP to probe province-wide allegations of corrupt practices by Chinese foreign agents. Well, this is going on the East Coast, going on the West Coast. Rob Lance sidestepped calls for a judicial inquiry under the Federal Inquiries Act. And he said that we asked the RCMP to give this matter prompt attention. Allegations of this nature, whether substantiated or not, have the potential to erode public trust and confidence in our democratic institutions. How many times in the Liberal election did we see allegations and then, well, one person pulled out of Chinese interference in our election process? And then especially the Trudeau Liberals ignored it lots of times because it actually worked out to the benefit of the Liberals.
I mean, also India is often mentioned, but I think China is like way ahead of India in terms of its infiltration, of its reach. There's also a story going on right now in England, in Mark Carney's England, beloved England, where the head of the James Bond organization, the spies, head of the spies, has come out and said China poses a threat to Britain every single day, and that they've infiltrated all aspects of British society. And there's a big scandal going on there in Britain. So it's the whole West, like the Chinese, they have, it is a very large country. Nobody really knows the true number because communists just lie all the time, but at least over 1 billion is a rough estimate of how many people they have in China. That's a lot of potential spies that you can take from the population and distribute around the world.
Yeah, somebody in the comments says, "Don't worry about it, Jim. Somebody will fix your reach next year." They may well do that. We do have a call with John Carpay next week, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. I've had him on quite a few times. He's going to be on next week, and we're going to talk about those bills that are being introduced that may make me and Ian,
Sorry, I'm just reading Lightning Rod. I need to stop reading his messages.
Anyway, look at this. Fed's okay at 35-year benefits claim. The Department of Veterans Affairs, 35 years after the outbreak of the Persian Gulf War, says it will rewrite regulations to pay full benefits to soldiers, sailors, and aircrew who served in Operation Desert Storm. Wow, that's a bit late, right? The government agrees with this recommendation. Their biggest sticking point there, whether this was a war or a special operation. That's why they didn't pay them the full benefits. They were arguing about whether this was actually a war, because you get different types of pay and coverage like that, right? It was a war for a legal sense for Kuwait, but not for Canada, wrote MPs. In other words, Canada actively participated in a war which, according to Canadian law, did not threaten its territorial integrity or the safety and security of its citizens. Anyone following the events in Kuwait and the region during this period would have said this was indeed a war, though through an original United Nations resolution did not involve hostilities. This is what I mean. This is how we treat our veterans. This is how we treat them. For 35 years, they have to argue about this sniggle. I say if somebody's shooting at you, these young men and women are sent into battle. Here's your gun, go shoot a stranger. And then they come back and they say, I'm not sure whether that qualifies. Well, there's people shooting at us. You sent us there. Yeah.
Also, just the fundamental
but if you look at the
irony
if you look at the form, you didn't qualify under this part of it.
the irony of, is the Gulf War a war? Well, the name kind of suggests that it is a war.
That's what I mean. It's like this bureaucrat's reading the form that makes like over 6 figures while the soldier's making minimum wage, basically, right? And he's like, well, why don't you go over there and I'll fill out the form for you, right? Maybe
Yeah, swap
Lightning
salaries.
got an answer for that. There you go.
Somebody says Carney sucked his thumb until he was 12. Is that true? What are you on about?
Was he in
the comment?
nursery there?
We could just read the comments and be entertained, couldn't we? Instead of doing a show.
Melissa Lantzman, Stellantis got $15 billion in taxpayer cash, then packed up for the U.S. with $13 billion investment into the South. Liberals got the photo op. That's what I mean. They never did contracts properly. Look at that ArriveCan stuff. They never did the contracts. What was that, $64 million or $65 million, and they're going to sue them back for what was $194,000? That's what because they never wrote the contracts properly. Nobody checked the contracts. How many stores have we done where they don't even look at the contracts? Here's another one. If this turns out to be true, we just gave Stellantis $15 billion today. You know, like as long as you're on your word, you're going to play good with us. It'll be great. And then you're going to hang the EV
so
man,
many as well as
top.
Honda. There's some other EV battery type companies. There was also that
Northvolt, Bright.
I can't even remember the name of the one
Bright.
during COVID where a load of money was given to set up to create a vaccine in Canada. Obviously in Quebec.
And there's lots of
I can't
stuff
remember
given
who
for
that was now.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff given during COVID that nobody ever produced anything. And then plus we did that story on Hollywood Blacklocks where they have all these ventilators that they can't even sell for scrap metal.
Yeah, just an unopened PPE that it was all about PPE, wasn't it? Once upon a time, and so much of it is just binned without even being used.
So we did that, I think, yesterday or the day before. Doug Ford doing his usual posturing there. Doug Ford pouring out bottles of. Has he lit a truck on fire yet, or a Jeep Compass? Has he done that yet? But Mark Carney, his best bud, dropped by his house there and went to talk him off the ledge, I guess. We spoke about getting major projects built, our government's plan to toughen bail and sentencing laws, and our measures to support workers. So obviously he went to visit Doug. Doug was screaming. And so, I mean, Doug, you voted for this. Doug, you're part of this. Like, this is you, Doug. All you, Doug.
Well, there's definitely trouble in paradise, though, isn't there? He was really contradicting Mark Carney, and then Mark Carney contradicted him, which is rare for those two lovebirds. They're usually on the same page, aren't they?
And then we got that new premier elected there, Newfoundlander. Don't mess with the Newfoundlanders. Here's a little clip here where the Newfoundlander says, Quebec trying to play the tough guy. And let's listen to a little clip there.
Quebec, that the PQ, the Parti Québécois, the Separatist Party, which has called this deal an insult to Quebec, and they publish maps when they're in government that shows Labrador as part of Quebec. If the clock goes past the lifespan of the Legault government potentially and goes into that election cycle in Quebec, you could lose the opportunity, right? So are you looking to have this all ready to go, say, by the spring? Would it be done in 6 months? Would it be done in under 12 months? Do you have a sense of the time frame you want to navigate on this one?
We will take as much time as is necessary to make sure that we protect the interests of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and get the best deal possible for Newfoundland and Labrador. And that's what I'm focused on. And we have the power, Quebec has the need. And when you look at Quebec's own details about what it would cost them to develop their own power, They have an opportunity to be part here. We'd love to have them along with us, but we're not going to be dictated to, and we're not going to be held to some artificial deadline, as I have said. What we want, we have the power. Quebec has the need. Let's negotiate.
Was that Danny Williams? I thought I heard Danny Williams there. Did you hear Danny Williams? Don't mess with Newfoundlanders. I worked with so many Newfoundlanders, and Danny Williams was not a guy to mess with either. And that sounded to me a lot like Danny Williams to me. But famous premier out there in Newfoundland. Sounds like he's talking tough, right?
Yeah. Well, they've had that going on so long, haven't they? That row with Quebec. So on it goes. I've Googled that, by the way, just for facts. And it was Sanofi. They got a load of money to build or create a COVID vaccine. And then the other one was Medicago, which went defunct. That's a Canadian company. Went defunct in 2023. So, I mean, the amount of money held around. COVID is like an abyss anyway. It's a black hole, isn't it? To even begin to look into it is quite a large endeavor. But lots of money thrown away.
Yeah, and so there's Quebec, Team Canada taking some of Labrador. You know, that's going to go over well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, different rules entirely for Quebec, aren't there? It is really like a different country, and certainly in attitudes, it's astonishing.
Yeah, you know, Danny Williams was definitely a very colorful premier for Newfoundland. I mean, they've had some tough goes. Newfoundlander people, from my experience, and I've worked with many of them, salt of the earth people. Like they tell it to you straight. That's the thing about Danny Williams and the sounds like this guy and many of the Newfoundlanders. They don't talk in circles like Mark Carney. They just tell you what it is, like it or lump it.
Yeah, in a kind of Irish-sounding accent to my naive ears.
Yeah, you give them a couple of schooner beer and you can't understand a word they're saying. They talk 100 miles an hour.
I did like, what's his name? I can't even remember his name now. That guy he died recently, the journalist. He was a CBC journalist, wasn't he, actually? Lightning Rod will know him and appreciate him. But I've forgotten his name, which is not good enough. But you must know who I mean. A really, really famous like columnist and commentator. And he died a couple of years ago. But he was my favorite Newfie.
The other Newfoundlander that I like, and he was a comedian on CBC, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, too, but black curly hair. He did a lot of skits.
Rex Murphy. That's the name of that guy.
Oh, Rex Murphy, yeah. But there was also a comedian. This hour has 22 minutes. He was on that show. I can't remember his name now off the top of my head. Another famous Newfoundlander. Look at this. U.S. President Trump says he will grant approval for a $22 billion freight rail project connecting Alaska to Alberta. They talked about that when Trump was in his first term. This was part of the TMX thing too, right? This was part of the solution for Alberta to gain access to a coastline. Instead of dealing with British Columbia, they would actually go to Alaska. And I'll ask you again.
Just a crazy roundabout way of doing it, really, isn't it? But I know it's just like Keystone XL. That's another roundabout way of doing it as well, isn't it? If you look at that map, you've got Prince Rupert just there.
Yeah.
Stone's throw away.
But if you look at Alaska, though, Alaska comes all the way down. Look at that. If you look at the map there, Alaska doesn't cut off right there. So whenever they were carving that piece out, because that was part of Russia, actually. Americans, and Russia still says it's part of them. You know, that's in dispute. Russia sold that to the Americans. I think it was like $85 million or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was nothing really. Very, very small amount of money.
Why wouldn't Canada have bought that and said, I'll give you 86?
Well, it was under the British Empire at that time, and anybody that's read about the British Empire's rule in Canada, you'll see that they never missed an opportunity to sell out Canada, especially if the Americans were causing a fuss. The British would come in and say, what do you want? We'll sell out Canada. So that's probably what it was.
Well, actually, it was only $7.2 million. And it was in March of 1867. A paltry.
Good times.
What's that? Even
That's
in
about
today,
when serfdom was ended, I believe, isn't
and
it?
even in today's dollar, it would be 150 to 160 million dollars. That's almost the price of, like, say, one of these famous rap stars, Cribs.
But yeah, I mean, the Russians actually, if you go to California, Northern California, there's a place there, and it's like a fort or something. It's Fort Ross, I think they call it. I can't actually remember. It's ages since I was there. But that was a Russian outpost. And you can go there, and it's like a little museum. Like, the Russians went right down, because obviously they'd conquered Siberia, and they just sort of kept going.
Well, you just walk across the ice. Anyway, this project would build a new rail line from Fort Mac through the Northwest Territories and Yukon to the Delta Junction in Alaska. Will connect with existing rail and continue to ports in Anchorage. And they've spent some money on their ports too. This 2,570-kilometer railway could move cargo like oil, potash, or container goods, and even passengers. So, and then
this is like Fortress North America that we hear so much about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it would fit the bill.
Yeah. So, I mean, it'd be a shame. Again, I interviewed yesterday the new Centre BC party, Karine Kirkpatrick, and I asked her, like a Centre BC party, is Canada a nation? And if she was the premier, does Alberta get access to the coastline? Because if we're a nation, they should get access to ship their goods no matter what the goods are. If Alberta wants to ship goods, it should have access to a coastline, if we're a nation. Because, Alberta could turn around and say...
If we're a nation, it's not the BC coast, is it? It's the Canadian coast.
No, it's Canadian nation, yeah.
If we're a nation.
Or if Alberta could say, then if you want to ship goods to Ontario, go around.
Yeah. Ask Trump for a railway through Alaska.
Go around. That's what I would say. If I was Danielle Smith, I'd say, go around. Figure it out. Here's some more bad news, and we're going to start to see more and more of this. Scotiabank laying off employees across departments. And it says, a transformation of this scale, this is a quote, transformation of this scale is not easy, especially when it means saying goodbye to valued colleagues. Aligning an organization and our resources around our focus for growth, including finding ways to be more efficient, is part of managing our bank effectively. We will continue to prioritize and invest in the areas that best meet the needs of our clients and deliver sustainable growth. You must think the banks are hurting and they need to make all these changes, eh? Because we got a little picture here to put you. The net income of $2.5 billion compared to $1.9 billion last time. Earnings per share of $1.84 versus $1.41. So money seems to be rolling in. AI is going to basically decimate a lot of the banking jobs. Just in case you're working in banking, this may be a wake-up call for you. But the Bank of Nova Scotia, in their third quarter net income was $2.5 billion. Not bad, right? Compared to $1.9 billion the year before, the same period. So it's not like they're hurting for cash, right?
And you have to remember as well how they actually earn their money, how they earn their bacon. It's, in some part, at least, in considerable part, it's based on them going to the Bank of Canada and saying, lend me some money at an unimaginably low rate. Give me this nice low rate on money that you're just going to invent out of thin air. And then I'll go and lend that to people at twice the rate. And that's how I'll make my money.
And they aren't the only bank doing layoffs. And then, again, the banks, bankers definitely have very emotional. They care about, their employees. And my wife worked for the bank for a long time. And the motto there, I can remember, this is way back 30 years ago. The motto then was even, do more for less. And again, 2.5 billion versus 1.9 billion the same period last year. And then this quote here. I can remember even her paychecks. There was so many deductions on her check, including forced donations to different charities, which they didn't get to stand up there with the CEO when they're handing the check out to these charities. They just took that off their checks without, whether you wanted it taken off your check or not. And then, the bank would stand up there and at the podium. It wasn't the employees that stood up there. more for less.
They love their colleagues, though, as they say, their cherished colleagues.
But rest assured, Canada has what the world wants. Let's going to play this clip here. Canada has what the world wants.
We have what the world wants in Canada, and now we are leveraging our competitive advantages. I'm not sure if you've heard, but we have 10 large national projects, including wind, including LNG, including nuclear energy with the development of an SMR at the Darlington nuclear plant.
That's good.
Countries around the world are asking how they can invest in these projects, and we welcome the
Countries around the world are looking at what Canada has for competitive edge, and the first thing that she came up with was wind. Wind. Nobody else has
LNG.
it. Hey, nobody else has wind.
But also, so she's a bull. She's an LNG bull now, apparently.
Yeah.
Talking about how great it is. Seem to remember she was a pretty important figure in the previous government that hated LNG and thought there was no business case to export it to Europe and Asia.
LNG was the devil.
How does she square that circle, I wonder? And also, I'd like to point out, she's speaking to Bloomberg. They love Bloomberg, don't they? Our dear leaders.
I mean, if you're the interviewer there, like, don't you say, wind? What are you talking about? The world wants our wind? Like, the other countries have squandered their economies. UK, aren't they a prime example of wind? Wouldn't you? They're one of the wind people in Germany. Wind, right? Again, you can't even heat your home because of, I guess, wind was too efficient.
Also, like, extravagantly subsidized, and the subsidy is just added to the bill, and that's part of the reason why energy is so expensive in England. It's because these crazy subsidies, and they're not even enough. They subsidize them just in an extraordinary way, and it's not enough. In their last round of the last auction, where they auction off, they ask energy companies to come and take over these wind projects or take them on and build them. Nobody even bid.
And LNG, let's talk about LNG for a second. This is the headline story in the Financial Post this morning. Amid gas glut in Western Canada, tanker traffic for LNG Canada falls short of expectations. Technical hiccups slowed the BC facility's startup, and then lower prices. Well, you know what? You didn't want to sell LNG when it had a premium, when the Japanese are begging for it, when the Germans are begging for it, and the South Koreans are begging for it. And now that America is like, oh, we'll sell LNG to anybody. We'll sell it from Alaska. We'll sell it from the East Coast. And now Canada says, well, LNG is a great idea. And now they're saying, well, there's a lot of LNG out there now. Prices gone down.
Just the British. Just tonight, you talking about Britain there, bringing back the PTSD that I have of life in that country. But they've gone really hard on wind, right? And whenever it's windy, they'll say, "Oh, look at the wind! Look how much wind is being generated." But if the British, like, you can do this in there are a lot of different jurisdictions where you can do this. But if you go to National Grid Live, just type National Grid Live into Google, see what it is, how the British are powering their country right now. It's 60%. Or 61% gas. Wind is contributing right now 4.1%, which is 1.38 gigawatts. If it's not windy, the British have to buy gas at extravagant prices from Europe, from Norway as well. It's just...
Those Norwegians.
It's such an ill-conceived power system, energy system.
But apparently we figured out, does it show how much wind is being generated here in Canada?
You can definitely do provincial ones. So you can do like Ontario grid, and you can see that one, Grid Watch. But I don't think there's like an overall Canada one. So right now in Ontario, it's 48.8% nuclear, which is, pretty steady away, isn't it? That's why people love nuclear so much. You can basically fix it at a, yeah.
Well, you can't have nuclear
if there's a live
BC.
Canada one.
No nuclear in BC.
Nope. Instead, you can have
wind.
Wind turbines.
There you go. Here's a Canadian. This is how Mark Carney treats Canadian journalists, though. Let's listen in on this.
Good morning, Prime Minister. What's your message to Stellantis?
Good morning. I've already given a statement on.
The Prime Minister not saying much on
There you go.
camera
That's
after
good.
Donald
That's
Trump.
good. You know, according to many of the Liberals and the NDP, Donald Trump is an anti-democratic, fascist, far-right extremist. But he takes questions from the media like relentlessly. Like he would stop there and he'd probably answer every question that was asked of him. Mark Carney coming out of Parliament answers no questions. Mark Carney right there refuses to answer questions. Who's any anti-democratic? Who answers to the public? Who doesn't answer? To the public?
Also, like that email that I sent to Mark Carney's press team this morning, and I admit it was out of frustration. I mentioned, like, how many times has Mark Carney sat down with a Canadian interviewer for a conversation? I don't just mean like standing at the pulpit and taking one question. I mean, like, really sitting down. And I did a bit of research, and I can only find Vasi Kapelas. I don't think he's done it with anyone else. There was that time, I'm talking about when he's Prime Minister, there was that time before the election where he went, what was it, New Brunswick or something like that? And he did a little bit of a sit down with someone. But it's just not happening. But he is going to sit, but he will sit down with the English for some reason. Loves English people, doesn't he? I think I really need to
Well, that's what you got to sell that card. You got to sell
I need
that
to
card.
like get an England flag on my shirt or something.
No. You don't want to do that because then the English will come and
might
arrest
get arrested. What can I do then? Picture of King Charles.
You got to wear you got to put the right things on your Twitter profile. I think that's what you got to do.
Ukraine flag then.
So again, the question is Canada a nation or is it a collection of provinces? And David Eby is going to answer it for you right here.
To put that tanker ban at threat, it's not just a threat to our pristine coast that so many British Columbians, including myself, value, but it is a direct economic threat to the kind of economy that we're trying to build in the country here. And so when I've said, let's cross that bridge when we come to it, we'll see what the Premier comes up with. I'm being polite. I am being polite. There is no project. There is no bridge to cross unless the Albertan government and the federal Canadian government are committing billions of taxpayer dollars to build this project. And if that is the plan, then they should be transparent about it. Don't mistake my politeness for weakness on protecting our economy and our coast. To put that
That's good. There you go. He says it to you. He tells you right there. And then the NDP pushed this out again because that's an older clip from him. But the NDP is like pushing it out again, the BC NDP, because they obviously want that message. That's one of his more passionate kind of like speeches. But he did say our coast. They didn't say it's Canadian coast. It's our coast. And so are we just then Mark Carney, the Liberals, ran on Team Canada. I'll remove all the interprovincial trade barriers and we'll have one economy. One economy. This guy says, no, you don't.
And also the polls. Sorry, go ahead.
And Christy Clark has said that tankers sail up and down the coastline all day long. American ones from Alaska. They go by every day.
Yeah.
So you're protecting the coastline from what? Canadian business? Because Americans are already sailing down the coast. They're already sailing down the coast. So it's just more virtue signaling and identity politics. It's not even true. It's misinformation. And then Jason Kenney came out and said that John Horgan even said that David Eby was the extreme left of his party, and he said John Horgan, we can't prove it now. John Horgan called him a mudhutter. But so Mark Carney, I mean, if I got to sit in front of Mark Carney, and as you will, is Canada a nation or not? And that's the question that needs to be answered. That is the question.
But his, one of his loyal lieutenants, Tim Hodgson, just the other day, was asked about this because what it boils down to is Eby's upset that Alberta has been going and asking coastal First Nations what they think of this project and trying to chat them up, trying to see if they can get them interested in a deal. Eby's really upset about that, which is a little bit, I mean, on the face of it, it's odd, isn't it? That's peculiar right off the bat. But it's even more peculiar that Tim Hodgson, Federal Energy Minister, has now come out, or Federal Natural Resources Minister, has come out and said, no, that's the right thing to do. and that's commendable. Alberta's doing it the right way, and we're pleased to see them do that. So it kind of, that combined with the fact that what you said, Carney was elected on this idea that he was going to build one Canadian economy and make us a conventional energy superpower and all the rest of that stuff. That's an election, so that's the ultimate poll. But then we also have lots and lots of polls, like from survey companies, that show that even in British Columbia, there's a majority of people that are in favor of an oil pipe, specifically an oil pipeline. So when he gets up there and he says, I'm going to protect British Columbians and the British Columbia's coast, it's like, what, you're going to protect British Columbians from themselves, from what they want?
Yeah, Jason Kenney, that name is starting to float around the internet there, the Mud Hutter thing. So, Eleanor Sturko, this headline here. This is just shocking. No charges laid by RCMP for Canadian meth exporters after 21-year-old dies in Auckland. And she said,
they're
along
not
with
happy, are they, the Kiwis?
Yeah, that BC has been a global hub for drug production and export because of criminals feel emboldened by radical NDP drug and soft. I mean, this is like, there's been documentaries done on Vancouver, and they just the decay of a city, of this kind of like drug dystopia. And now even David Eby admits that he was wrong, yet the policy still runs. How many more people will lose their lives between now and January? Because why does the policy have to run? Is there a contract in place? Who's profiting? Like, why don't you end it like today? Why isn't it ending?
But also, why is it not considered more of a national emergency that Canada's become this crucial transit point for Mexican cartels to sell meth and other drugs to New Zealand and Australia? Because it's arbitrage. They do it because it's apparently meth and other drugs are like many, many times more expensive in Australia and New Zealand. So you can make a lot more money. And they're choosing BC as a transit point because they can get away with it. Because
nobody's inspecting the sea
police.
Nobody's inspecting the sea cans either. And here, this one's from Macklin McCall. I interviewed him, I think it was last week or just the week before. And this is, again, we're going to play the clip here. And this is the shooting in Syria. With drugs comes guns. That's like the two go hand in hand. I mean, that video is shot from inside the car, so they're actually showing it off.
That's the third time. There's three videos, and they all look the same. Third time that same place has been shot.
And I interviewed Macklin McCall, and he's like the federal Liberals are going after registered gun owners. Do you think that guy registered his gun? Do you think that was the first thing he did was register his gun?
There was that video on Muskoka, did you see? Where there's a lot of lads with like rifles and stuff, and it's like, does it really make sense to hunt down like Brian Jones, who has his like bolt action rifle? Like, I mean, come on.
And then, like the guns and the drugs are coming in the same sea cans. I think that the inspection is around 3%, if I'm not wrong. I could be off by 1%. 3%.
They can use drones as well, can't they?
Yeah.
Over the US border, and like that's been going on for it. Not drones, but I mean that the border's been used for ages.
Well, you can just use your hands, and you can just throw it over the border, and somebody else can pick up.
Or a catapult, maybe.
I mean, I lived on the U.S. border. I mean, it's I think one of the longest unprotected borders. It's huge.
Yeah.
Like
even in that, what is it? Is it Abbotsford, where it's like there's just that little trench? It's like surreal, isn't it? It's like it's not even a trench really. It's like a tiny little ditch.
Well, you can go to Midway and you can go to Soyuz, and I mean, there's mountains there. You just we used to be when we were kids in Midway, there'd be hippies that would come through town with big backpacks, and we were like grade 7, and they would say to us, "Where's the border?" And we would point to the where the border crossing was. Down the road. You go down to the end of the road, and it goes into the U.S. And they said, well, where is the border? We said, well, it's just over there too, right? And that, which direction they walked? Not towards the crossing. You know what I mean?
Well, and it wasn't really, to my knowledge anyway, from what I've read, it wasn't really like punished, was it, in any serious way? It was a lot more of a slap on the wrist kind of thing back then.
Well, And then another one. This is one's causing, and I did ask this of Brenda Bailey too, and I said it's causing uncertainty. And she said, well, that's why we're appealing it. But they're still doing this. Reconciliation behind closed doors, and BC government proposes law for secret negotiations between cities and First Nations. I am going to do a full show with Jeff Moyse on the Haida decision, and he's going to break that down, because that one was done behind closed doors too. They announced it after, right?
It's a really interesting topic. I don't know who this Mortimer guy is. That picture's from, what's that movie called again? The Big Short or something. It's a meme picture. Obviously, this is just I assume this is just an anonymous account, but some of them are actually quite good, aren't they, on Twitter these days? But he points out something very important, doesn't he? And, all the power to him, I guess.
We got some international news here for you, and this is heating up there in Venezuela. We're gonna play a little clip of this. The Americans seem to be posturing there. Let's play this little clip here from Fox News.
Fox News alert, B-52 bombers are flying off the coast of Venezuela. Trump's not bluffing. Right now, more than 10,000 U.S. soldiers are built up in the Caribbean, on ships in Puerto Rico, locked and loaded. Special operations helicopters were just seen flying 90 miles from Venezuela's coast. The chopper units used by Delta Force, Navy SEALs, and the Green Berets. The Black Ops were spotted off the coast of Trinidad. They're very important for search and rescue missions. Also spotted little birds. They're smaller but faster, designed for quick insertion of special operators behind enemy lines. The Ghost was also confirmed to be in the Caribbean. That's the nickname for MV Ocean Trader. It's the kind of ship that doesn't want to be found. It's designed for black ops and special missions because it's dark and blends in with cargo. There's more. 10% of the U.S. naval power is now in the region. It's a major shift. There's subs, several destroyers, and F-35 fighters in Puerto Rico. That's on top of all the coke boats getting smoked to pieces by the week. Kilos of cocaine are washing ashore. Don't tell Hunter. Dozens of bad hombres becoming shark bait. It's got Maduro's attention. He's the dictator of the narco state, a very bad hombre, and we just doubled the bounty on his head. It's now 50 mil. According to the New York Times, Maduro offered us a dominant stake in Venezuela's oil, gold, and mineral wealth and promised to cut ties with Russia and China. And Trump and Rubio said no. That tells me the gunboat diplomacy is going to end up with no Maduro and a Venezuela aligned with us, not Putin or Xi. American action in Latin America hasn't always ended well. Look at the Bay of Pigs. Other times, it's a piece of cake. It's our backyard. And Trump's just reestablishing the Monroe Doctrine, a.k.a. the Donroe Doctrine. Hopefully a Venezuelan general does the right thing and collects the 50.
It's very glib, that, wasn't it? Very silly, man.
Jesse?
The coke boats that we've been smoking off the coast. It was almost like, it was like a riddle.
Jesse Waters is the big star on Fox. He took over after they fired Tucker.
Yeah, I mean, he's not... Say what you want about Tucker Carlson. He was a sort of ideas man. He was like an intellectual, wasn't he? I mean, this fella obviously is not that, is he?
Well, there you go. Anyway, interesting, though. I mean, this buildup has been happening for a while. I mean, they have said, I think even Canada said it was an illegitimate election again. But
it's been so long now, hasn't it?
No.
Since Chavez took over in a coup, a military coup.
Pierre Poilievre's wife is from Venezuela.
Yeah, and even just in my own experiences of life, I've met quite a few Venezuelans who've had to come to Canada, had to escape that country, which is so sad because, as you've said many times, and it's true, it was once quite prosperous, and it could easily be prosperous again.
It was the richest nation in South America, and they have vast oil reserves. They got into, well, anyway, they nationalized everything. All the American companies left. I can remember I even had an investment there, some mining stuff, and obviously all that went with it. They nationalized everything, so all those investments were garbage. And then, then they picked a fight with the Americans because obviously there were some boycotts and stuff like that. And then inflation went through the roof. They didn't put money into their oil and that. And then I think, inflation went rampant in 1,000%, and the Bolivia just imploded. And I think a lot of people lost 98% of their wealth, and some people fled.
Yeah, millions left. And I think there was a time when the US border, during the crisis, during Biden's time, a lot of them were Venezuelans trying to get out of that mess. But this is a weird one. I mean, for all I was having a laugh about this guy and what he was saying, he wasn't wrong when he was talking about things like the Monroe Doctrine and America's backyard and all that. That's very much how the Americans have always looked at it's the Western Hemisphere. That's what the Monroe Doctrine is about. So it's North America and South America that they just consider to be kind of basically theirs.
China, during COVID, the Americans under Biden basically cratered into themselves and didn't offer help to many other countries. And guess who was out there helping other countries? China. And China, if you go look at a map of Chinese investment, that South America is lit up. Just like Africa. Africa is just covered with Chinese investment. And so is South America. It's because the Americans cratered into themselves and they were so worried. I mean, they became this, they went to sleep, actually. They went to sleep. And that's why you hear all this talk about America's back. Because America cratered in onto itself. And, it really allowed China to exude its influence on the rest of the world. So
somebody brings up a good point here, though, about Venezuela, which is it's not good news for Canada. If Venezuela's back on the menu, that's bad news for Canada because they have the same kind of oil, don't they? The heavy oil.
They also have tons of resources. Venezuela is very rich in lots of resources as well. Venezuela is a very rich resource nation. Very, very rich.
Yeah.
But they got that shutdown in the U.S. government there, and they're paying their military and all that stuff. And guess who said it's a $10 billion a month payroll to pay that military? I don't know if our military would be that high. I don't know how we pay a few guys minimum wage, but Elon Musk says I'll cover that.
Did he really, or is this just nonsense?
Here's Trump saying it himself. There you go.
Shutdown. You have the money to pay the troops on October 15th. Okay.
I actually have a man who is a very wealthy person. You'll know that when I tell you this. Who called a donor, a great gentleman, and he said, if there's any money necessary, shortfall, for the paying of the troops, that I will pay it, meaning he will pay it. How about that? I said, look, we're not going to need it. We're going to take care of our troops. But this was a position that's being forced upon us by Democrats. And all they have to do is just...
Shutdown. You have the money to pay the troops on October 15th. Okay.
I actually have a man who is a very wealthy person. You'll know that when I tell you this. Who called a donor, a great...
It was worth saying twice,
I guess. We played it twice.
We couldn't shut it off for some strange reason. It's like Trump, when he gets talking, you can't stop him. He just he even takes control of your internet. He's just that's
the power, isn't it? It's just that's what he does. He just mesmerizes you. Yeah, it's like I'm trying to think in Futurama. What's that? There's a frog or a toad that just mesmerizes you. Toad. That's what it is.
I mean, you and I are kind of like news junkies. I watched a lot of the conferences, and I watched this one yesterday where they announced IVF, and it was a pretty good announcement actually to the benefit of Americans that were looking to have families. And he lets everybody else in the room talk because there's a lineup of people, and he's just like. He said, yesterday I stood here for an hour and a half, everybody talking so long. And he said, can I sit down, Bobby? Can I just sit? So like the old man, he has to sit down in his chair, right? But the point is, he'll sit there for hours with the press. Hours. Mark Carney won't even answer a question as he's walking in. You tell me which one is a threat to democracy. Anyway, Venezuela.
I think as well, we have to say, he seems to like it. He actually enjoys that, whereas I think Carney.
He understands.
He doesn't enjoy it, does he?
He understands the power of the media, though. He understands the power of the media, and he gives them And he gives them straight answers. Like, when Trump says something, he may embellish or whatever, but he'll tell you what he thinks, right? He'll actually call
and he
people
always
out
did, even when he was building real estate and all that back in the day.
And if you look at Venezuela, one of the largest oil reserves in the world, about 304 billion barrels of oil, more than Saudi Arabia. Natural gas, one of the 8th largest in natural gas reserves. Minerals, gold, iron ore, bauxite, aluminum, diamonds, coal, and rare earths. Agriculture, very rich country that has been, like many people in Canada and the U.S. want to socialize it. And look, it's a basic disaster for the people. An absolute disaster for the people. And again, if you want to say Canada is squandering its riches, you have Venezuela that is showing Canada that could actually get worse.
I mean, it's horrifying, isn't it, that to think that they used to have such a high standard of living as well. Like they've lived that nightmare. I mean, in many ways, I'd say probably some of the best people that you could talk to are like older Venezuelans and their experience.
Talk to Anita Poilievre. She's there. She lived it. She lived the experience. Here's GB News, and this is UK Prime Minister trying to overturn police decision to ban Israeli fans from attending soccer game. He allowed this all to happen, right? And he said he's working to reverse a decision by police in the city of Birmingham to ban Israeli soccer fans from attending the game next month. Police have said they banned Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters because their presence would be high risk.
His first reaction to this story broke yesterday, I think, or last night. His first reaction was, it's the wrong decision. So he took the Doug Ford approach, said, oh, this is a wrong decision. And then, as you might expect, people were saying, all right, so what are you going to do about it? And it just, nothing happened for ages. And now he's come out and said he's going to have some meetings and he's going to try and overturn the decision. But it's just, when Trump talks about weak leaders, he's talking about Keir Starmer, isn't he? Like, look at this. It's just such feeble reaction. And he's, he purports to like really care about the Jewish population in Britain, which is very nervous right now. He claims, and his wife's Jewish, he claims that he cares so much, but it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just, he's just crippled by his own indecision and his own weakness, because he doesn't seem to be able to act on that or any file, not just that.
We've got 3 more to go, and they're pretty good, so stick around for them. They're actually really revealing. And Kamala Harris, she's on that speaking tour, selling books. You know what I mean? She's selling books, trying to be relevant, and she's incoherent most of the time. But this time, she's actually trying to. She's actually going after Joe Biden a little bit in this clip here. Listen to this.
I write in the book that I thought it was a big mistake to not invite Elon Musk when we did a big EV event. I mean, here he is, the major American manufacturer of extraordinary innovation in this space. Well, and in space. And the fact that he was not invited was just on merit. When
that's good. That's good enough.
A president of the United States.
That's good. It just goes around in circles in typical world salad. But Democrats and liberals are the same people. They just, like we just have a Walmart version of, or a Temu version of the Democrats here. And again, Elon Musk
Did you
not
hear
invited.
That,
what?
Did you hear that laugh from the audience when that was not a good pun?
No.
Where she's like, in the technology space and in space.
No.
It's like, that's not a good pun. That's a pun to be ashamed of. They should have groaned. But it's like the fawning and the sycophants.
They just
like,
love
yes,
her.
Kamala.
They just love her, right? But she's just pitching her book in the book. So buy the book and you can read more about it. In the book, in the book, in the book. The title of the book should say, How I Blew $1.5 billion in 107 Days and Lost. That's what the title of the book should be.
But she had a good time with Oprah. And Oprah made a profit.
So did Beyonce. J.B. Pritzker addresses the, how, I'm not going to say this out loud, or, you know what I mean? You draw your own lines, you get your strings out. But, Hunter Biden made tons of money selling art. And even Evan Solomon was selling art to Mark Carney. But here's J.B. Pritzker. He's got a different way to get money into his bank account. Listen to this.
Obviously, and I've explained this, or at least we did in a statement, that I went on vacation with my wife, with some friends. I was incredibly lucky. You have to be to end up ahead, frankly, going to a casino anywhere. It was in Las Vegas, and I like to play cards, and so that I founded a charitable poker match here in Chicago called the Chicago Poker Challenge that has raised millions of dollars for the Holocaust Museum here. And particularly to stand up for civil rights. That's much of what the Holocaust Museum does. And so, anyway, that's all I can say about it. I mean, I had fun doing it. I encourage people to come to the state of Illinois and gamble in our casino.
I like that bit at the end. Yeah, I did this in Las Vegas, but please come to my state and gamble.
Yeah, like, how did you get $1.4 million in your bank account? Well, hey, I'm a hell of a gambler. That's pretty high stakes for a guy that's a governor. No, don't you think?
Apparently, he's a billionaire. I read that today, so I guess it's not much money to him. But I mean, it is. You were talking about dodgy art sales, which is the favored method, isn't it, for smuggling money, or books that nobody reads, but somehow all the copies are bought. There are various ways to get money to political figures, aren't there, without it really showing up in the books as a donation. This would be an obvious way to do it, wouldn't it? But I'm not saying that he's done that. J.B. Pritzker, I'm sure he's completely above board.
He's a hell of a gambler.
Yeah, he's just really good at cards.
Stephen Smith, I talk about Marco Rubio. I think Trump just called him. One thing that we should mention, because we didn't cover it off in the show, well, let's cover it off right now. Zelensky is meeting with Trump today. And then also in that press conference I watched yesterday, Trump revealed that he had a 2-hour conversation with Putin that he went very, very well. He said he joked with Putin and said, how about I give Zelensky a bunch of Tomahawk missiles? You like that? And apparently Putin said he didn't like that idea too much.
Yet.
Apparently, Donald Trump talks. He's like, those Tomahawks are lethal weapons. I give them those Tomahawks, and Tomahawks, they're the best weapons in the world.
Greatest anybody's ever seen.
But Tomahawks definitely, you don't want a Tomahawk flying at you.
No, especially not if you're Russia. They're having a lot of trouble right now.
If Canada had Tomahawks, they'd have to rename them by now.
Oh, absolutely. No question about that. What would they be called, though? Wet'suwet'en Hawks.
We would have to actually take the combustion system out of the propulsion system out of them, too, and put in some electric batteries or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And they'd have to be manufactured in Quebec, naturally. So maybe they would be called Iroquois.
Maybe we would throw some bricklets at them. Anyway, Stephen Smith joins me as a fan of Marco Rubio. Let's listen to what he says about the chances for the Democrats in 2028. And he's a Democrat, by the way. It's going to take us a second to find it, but yeah, Donald Trump does donate his paycheck. He doesn't need the cash money, that's for sure.
Shut down. You have the money.
Is it the wrong one? Should be this one here on the bottom here. See if you can find it under Jason Cohen there, and we'll just check. We'll just wrap up the show. That's our show for the week, though, too. We're going to see if we can find this clip. He's going to go see if he can go to Jason Cohen's thing there and see if he can find this clip. But, we're watching what's going on with Zelensky and Trump. And then apparently they have a meeting booked right now, too. Rubio is going to go meet with Lavrov. And then Trump is supposedly going to meet Putin in Hungary and Budapest here in, I think, 2 weeks. They're going to have another meeting.
At Nate City 11.
Go ahead and play this.
Who has the best chance to defeat Vance and Rubio on the Democratic side in 2008? The answer would be no one. Not a damn soul. But I like Ossoff. I believe that's the correct pronunciation of his name. Also for Ossoff out of Georgia. I think that I like him. I like how he sounds. I do. But I got to be honest with you. If this Israel-Hamas deal comes out to be more positive than anything else, I don't think anybody's going to be able to compete with Marco Rubio, who Trump called maybe the greatest Secretary of State in American history. Marco Rubio gets things done. He's a former senator. He's now Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. He is no joke. I'd put him above Vice President Vance, I can tell you that much. Stephen A. signing off. Straight Shooter with Stephen A. Until next time.
Also a big fan of Marco Rubio. The guy gets things done. He's a no-nonsense guy. Again, Nita Nan says that that's his counterpart, or her counterpart. And Rubio was probably thinking, okay, whatever you say, Anita. Just keep selling wind.
Sorry, I'm just trying to overcome this PTSD that I'm experiencing from hearing those words. Marco Rubio, the greatest Secretary of State in American history. Just a couple of secretaries of state that I'm just going to pull off the top of my head. Thomas Jefferson, James Madison. Come on. Stop being a clown. Stop being stupid. Just think. This is the order.
Well, let's say you should qualify by saying modern times. Modern times, right? Let's say in the last 50 years. Because I can't remember any in the last. Condoleezza Rice. I'm going to go no-go. What's that?
Hillary Clinton was one.
And who was the godfather of war there? Cheney. Dick.
Cheney was defense. He wasn't Secretary of State. Yeah. The famous secretaries of state are like Henry Kissinger. He was
Trump calls Rubio a Henry Kissinger without the leak.
I don't know. I mean, Rubio's obviously very ambitious, isn't he? I would be surprised if he didn't put his hat in the ring to succeed Trump. I'm not sure if Vance and Rubio get on well, though. They don't seem to do much together, do they? So I'm not sure they'll be on the same ticket.
They keep it, if there is some tension there, they keep it to themselves for sure. But
well, that's it. That's it. They're both quite smart operators, political operators, aren't they? So they wouldn't reveal that.
I think they would probably try to convince them and say, look, the Republicans are going to hold this presidency for a while. Vance, you're going to get your 8 years. Rubio, you're going to get your 8 years. You just got to keep marching down the road. But according to a lot of the Democrats, Trump will never leave. They'll have to carry him out in a box. So.
Well, he's got the hat, hasn't he? Trump 2028. But I think that's, as usual, it's just a wind
messing
up.
With people. He sends that to Gavin Newscomb, I guess he calls him, right? Anyway, that's our show. We thank you for watching. If you could like, share, and all that stuff. Lots of great interviews this week as well. And Hillary Clinton, yeah. Again, that meeting, it sounds very hopeful, too. I watched that whole press conference. Sounds very hopeful. I thought RFK Jr. was going to start crying yesterday. It was pretty powerful.
What was it? He was talking about the wall?
Just thanking Trump for allowing him to be part of this.
Yeah, he said, they seem to have a real friendship, don't they?
He said, if you can't get to heaven, because his heaven thing is weighing on RFK, if you can't get to heaven, who's going to get there? So, anyway. That's it. We'll see you next week. And we got lots of great interviews coming up, and there's lots we did this week. So check out Now Media. Follow us, like, share. Please do that. And before they, one of the viewers says, before they shut us down, right? Anyway, thank you. Thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.